Alright, now when we talk about laptops for creators, a lot of folks just think that okay, you might be using a MacBook Pro. I mean, that's just sort of like the go-to recommendation. Like, okay, you're a creator, just get a MacBook Pro. But why is it so? I mean, if you think about it objectively, there isn't a lot of features that MacBook offers if you are just confined inside of your specific creative suite. But the problem, however, is that one advantage that Mac offers is that programs usually run more stable inside macOS, which is why creators prefer that. But what if I told you that there is a laptop created purely for creators that not only offers amazing stability and exceptionally good performance, but also has more added features, especially for creators? Well, this right here is the Asus ZenBook Pro 16X, which is basically just crafted for creators in mind. And if you're a creator, I won't say like me, because I mean, of course, this can handle a lot of things that I do, but it can do so much more. And if you're like a full-on professional creator, this is probably the best laptop that you can pick right now. Now, why do I say that? Well, this is one from GTR and you're watching my in-depth review of, well, this big laptop. That was scary because you actually should not be flipping that. But yeah, let's just get started. Alright, so first things first, let's just start by talking about the design here. As you can see, it's a 16-inch laptop, which is quite big, and well, even so, it's not that heavy. Now, I will admit that it's not exactly meant to be super portable or anything. You can't really be using it on your lap per se when you're on the go. But with that being said, the kind of horsepower it runs in, it's best to keep it on a desk. And when you open it up, you get the ergo lift hinge here that facilitates all of the cooling. And of course, the ergo lift hinge helps with better positioning for the keyboard as well. But yeah, the whole idea here is to give it maximum room for cooling the laptop, which basically helps to drive maximum performance out of it. Now, in terms of the design, the lid here looks gorgeous along with the new monogram logo. See, personally, I'm not a fan of these concentric circles, but they are quite muted this time, and you only notice them when you look very closely, which nobody does, so nobody cares. Now, what I do like is that the finish of the laptop is super premium, and the build here is quite sturdy and reliable. In fact, the entire chassis here is made of CNC machined aerospace grade 6000 series aluminum alloy, and it also comes with US military standards 810H certification. The laptop comes in this stealth black variant, which of course I do admire quite a lot. One thing that's usually noticeable is that when you have a premium finish like this on a laptop, that usually attracts a lot of fingerprints. Now, I'm not gonna say that there are no fingerprints on it, but it's quite resist, and of course the finish of the laptop basically helps in hiding those fingerprints well. You also get exclusive features such as the Asus dial, a very big touchpad with Numpad functionality built into it, and the laptop also comes with support for Asus Pen. Now, of course, those are more creator focused features, which I will be talking about like later on in this video. But yeah, as far as the design is concerned, it's damn good. Of course, let's just talk about the I/O, because for a creator, you don't want to be carrying around a lot of dongles, right? Well, on this laptop right here, you get two USB Type-C Thunderbolt 4 ports, one USB A 3.2 Gen 2 port, followed by a DC in port. On the right side, you get a full-size SD card reader, a 3.5 combo audio jack, and a full-sized HDMI 2.1 port. So yeah, basically you really don't need to carry around any of those dongles with this thing. Maybe if you use more than one legacy accessory, like for instance in my use case I was using a wired mouse which was occupying the USB A port, so I kind of wish that maybe this thing had one more USB A port. But let's be honest, it's 2022, and unless manufacturers basically stop omitting type A ports from the ports, the world is not going to move forward. So yeah, it's fine. I don't really have complaints there. Alright, so moving along, let's talk about the display here. You get a 16-inch 4K OLED touchscreen panel with a 3-sided nano edge design, which comes with a 90% screen to body ratio. See, this is a panel created purely for creators. I mean, of course, the laptop in itself is, but for creators, the panel obviously matters quite a lot. You don't want to be carrying around a mini laptop that you always have to plug into an external display. You want the inbuilt display to be that good. And this one definitely delivers. First, you get the golden ratio of 16:10, which is great for creators. You get 100% DCI-P3 color gamut space. You also get Pantone validation for signifying greater color accuracy. The peak brightness of this laptop is at 550 nits, and you also get VESA Display HDR True Black 500 and Dolby Vision certification. In fact, it comes with a contrast ratio of 1,000,000:1 and a response time of 0.2 seconds. And of course, as a creator, it's important to play around with different color profiles, and the laptop lets you easily switch between sRGB, DCI-P3 or even more saturated color profiles. What's more is that you can even fine-tune them as per your liking. Of course, all of this means that not just content creation but even content consumption on this laptop is great. So whether it's Netflix or Prime Video, everything that you're watching runs at the highest possible settings, and everything, the video, the picture quality, they all look amazing. Of course, thanks to the OLED panel, you get deeper blacks, which really add on to the overall experience. And like I said, there is support for HDR content. And of course, when you're watching content, it's not just the display itself. The audio experience matters quite a lot. And in that context, once again, ASUS has you covered. You get upward firing speakers here that just sound so good. I mean, apart from the fact that they're so good in terms of quality, they're also super loud. So not only can you listen to it at max volume, you do not have to even worry about having some sort of distortion in the audio quality, which is great. And of course, as a creator, if you care about the audio quality as well, this thing comes with Dolby Atmos support as well. And there's also a smart and powerful DSP chip inside that enhances the volume in real world scenarios. Alright, so now let's talk about the keyboard and the touchpad, but let's just start first with the keyboard because there are a couple of things that I want to talk about. First, the basics. The key travel is great. The keyboard layout in itself is pretty good and it's very easy to adapt to. I mean, as a review, I keep switching between like hundreds of laptops. Okay, not really. More like tens of laptops. But yeah, the overall experience is really good. You don't have any issues in adjusting to the keyboard layout here, even though it is slightly cramped vertically, but it is still easy to adapt to. Another thing that I want to highlight is the backlighting here. So it's not your standard RGB backlighting. You have support for both RGB backlighting as well as dedicated white lights. So the advantage to that is that if you are in your professional environment, you can just set to the white light, and if you are in the more creative mode or in the more fun mode, you can obviously play around with RGB. And of course, it has support for Aura Sync. So not only is the keyboard's backlighting controllable, it is in sync with the LED strip underneath the keyboard as well as the logo on the back. And all of it just makes the laptop look far more appealing and just, yeah, really adds on to the design limit of it. With all of that being said, there is a slight con which I think all of us saw coming right out of the box. The keyboard is definitely placed on top of the cooling setup, and if you are pushing the system and then trying to use this keyboard, you can easily feel the heat. And I'm not going to sugarcoat things, it is not tolerable enough. With that being said, I don't think you would anyway be pushing it to that limit and then be using the keyboard. See, what I mean by that is that if you're using this laptop for editing purposes, then it's fine. The laptop starts to heat up when you push it to, rendering purposes. And in that kind of scenario, it's anyway best to leave your system as it is. You don't want to be rendering a video in the background and then also be using your laptop. Regardless of how powerful your system might be, that's just not an optimal way of using your system. Below the keyboard, we have the enormously wide touchpad. I mean, seriously, it's gigantic and it's really good to use too. Of course, I have big hands, but gestures work fine on this. Fine is an understatement, it works very well. One slight issue that I did face in the starting, which is this Numpad control, because naturally my pinky finger just rests on top of the Numpad control, so it just randomly triggers. Now the good part is that you can still continue using all of the gestures and everything. You can just use your touchpad normally as a touchpad even if the Numpad is on, so that is not a concern. But nonetheless, it just kind of triggers in the mind, so it's best to just take your time, adapt to it. It's something that you do face in the beginning, but eventually your hands will adjust to it. Now, of course, when you're talking of I/O, the highlight needs to be on this ASUS dial. You can easily customize the features of the dial inside the ProArt Creator Hub. Basically, it lets you add multiple functions such as vertical scrolling, switching between multiple apps, system volume, brightness, and much more. Now, while all of that sounds pretty good, that is kind of like basic stuff. The one area where this dial actually comes into play is when you're using them with creator apps such as Premiere Pro, Lightroom, Photoshop and stuff like that. For instance, inside Lightroom, you can handle settings such as contrast, exposure, white balance, temperature, etc. with ease, and this just makes your work far more productive, especially when you're playing with a lot of images. On the other hand, in a video editing software like Premiere Pro, which we use here, the most used features were timeline scrolling while editing or playback, audio waveform zoom, which I especially use when working with multiple audio tracks. One of the most useful ones I found was the timeline zoom feature. It basically helps when working with complex timelines. And yeah, I mean, the whole point here is that while this thing might sound like a gimmick, trust me, it's not. It's definitely useful, and you really have to try it out to understand how it really impacts your workflow. If you just go into a shop and just try it out, at first you might think, yeah, I can just do that with my mouse too, you know, it's not making much of a difference. But once you start about like actually using it and incorporating it in your work scenario, that is when you finally get to realize, okay, how productive this thing makes you. Speaking of productivity, another thing that enhances your productivity is the Asus Pen. Asus Pen 2.0 or whatever they want to call it. I'll just call it the Asus Pen. The point is, it's a good pen and it really helps with your creative workflow. For sure, if you are good with a normal mouse, yes, you can use that to navigate between stuff. Or if you own a Wacom tablet or something like that, you can use that to draw stuff as well. But it's just easier to have one laptop do all of it for you. You can just use the Asus Pen to annotate stuff or even create digital art on this laptop directly without any issues. Alright, so moving along, let's talk about the performance. Now, in terms of specifications, our unit here comes with a 12th Gen Intel Core i9-12900H processor that comes with 14 cores and a clock speed of 5 GHz, which is then paired with a 32GB DDR5 RAM clock at a whopping 5300 MHz. You get the NVIDIA RTX 3060 Studio GPU here, and for storage, you get a 1TB NVMe SSD. I mean, do I really need to even get into the depth of it? Right off the spec sheet, you know that this laptop is a monster. And when you talk about benchmarks, this thing just flies through all of them. No complaints whatsoever. Of course, you're not buying this laptop for benchmark scores or flaunting those benchmark scores. Nor are you buying this laptop for gaming needs. Now, don't get me wrong. Of course, you can game on this thing. But with a panel so beautiful, which is obviously beautiful because it's running at 4K resolution, this can't really be running games at 4K. It's a 3060 at the end of the day. So when you have to drop down resolution, there are certain things that it's decent. Games run fine. There's no complaints there per se. But let's be honest, it's not a gaming laptop. If you buy this and end up just playing games, that's just stupid. Instead, this is, like I said, for creators, and for the editing suite, it's perfect. First of all, I would just like to highlight the same thing that I said in the introductory part, which is the stability. I have used not just Adobe Suite, but even different suites such as Affinity Photo or even DaVinci Resolve, and none of them have crashed on this so far. Fingers crossed, because still it's running Windows at the end of the day. But yeah, none of them have crashed on this system. So that's one good thing. I think the last creator laptop that I used was also from the house of Asus, the G14. That was the one that I found was stable enough. Apart from that, every laptop, regardless of whether it's Asus or any other brand, it's Windows and all of these suites do crash on it. But for some reason, all of it just seems to be very well optimized for this laptop. And I think a good portion of that, like the credit for that, goes to the fact that this thing is using studio drivers from NVIDIA. So that also helps. Of course, in terms of performance, 4K video editing, no issues whatsoever. You can do anything on the screen and the laptop will just handle everything like a breeze. No complaints whatsoever. Of course, the cooling department gets a lot of credit for that. Upon which I will like to point out that while the fans do get loud enough, if you're editing, like if you're a serious creator, well, of course, you have to be a serious creator if you're going to be spending this much money on a laptop. So anyway, you'll be using a good pair of headphones. So the fans are anyway not going to be audible to you. So that really does not make a difference. The good part here is that the cooling system is very well designed to keep the temperatures in check. With that being said, during our testing, I did notice that there was some CPU level throttling happening. But that was only when we were stress testing with benchmarks. As for a creator's purpose, there was no throttling that we focused, at least in our use case. And our use case does involve making all of these 4K videos, playing around with a lot of effects and filters and a lot of layers go around in our Premiere project, and the laptop did handle everything easily. And even the render times were far better than most of our editing rigs, so that was also good. Lastly, there's the battery life, and of course with a laptop this big and this powerful, you can't really be expecting a tremendous amount of battery life. But with that being said, even with a normal I would say medium use case, which basically means like slight 1080p video editing on the go, and a couple of content consumption on Netflix, of course web browsing and running WhatsApp on the laptop in itself, I was averaging around 5 hours, like a little less than 5 hours of battery backup, which I mean, it's pretty good from a laptop like this size. Now, one thing I want to specifically highlight when we're talking about the battery department is that usually when we talk about gaming laptops, we say that, okay, your gaming is fine, but you can't really be gaming when you're, well, not plugged in. You can't really game on the battery. And usually people just associate the same logic when it comes to creative suite as well. And for the most part, it's true. On this laptop, I won't say that you can entirely go on editing videos on the battery life. However, like if you're working with a lot of proxies, or if you're just doing basic video editing, and by basic, I don't mean like very niche cuts and all. I mean like to the point where if you're like 1080p editing, but just playing with like 2-3 layers, the laptop can handle it all easily on the battery life. And that's a big statement, because as a creator, you know that there are times where you're just on the go, you're traveling, and suddenly a client messages you, okay, we need this change ASAP. And the hotel is like, what, 2 hours away. What do? You can just easily edit something on the go. And that matters a lot. But of course, it's not all good, in a sense that while you can edit a video, you will still need to plug it in to actually be able to properly render it. I mean, sure, you can render it on battery life as well, but then again, there will be a noticeable performance dip there. But yeah, I mean, the silver lining here is that you don't have to entirely wait till you reach your destination. You can just edit on the go, and then once you reach, you just plug it in and put it on render. And judging by the project's weight, I think it should be ready in like 10 minutes or something like that. But yeah, I mean, the whole point is that as compared to gaming laptops, and which is the idea here, most people as creators just buy gaming laptops because they just are looking at the specifications. With the ZenBook Pro 16X OLED, the idea is to change that. I mean, Asus has been creating laptops for creators specifically under their Pro Art lineup. You have monitors as well that are obviously catered toward the creator audience. But yeah, with this kind of a laptop, it just makes sense. You know, you're not just getting maximum performance, you're also getting added features that really aid and enhance your productivity. The Asus dial might seem like a very small feature, but that in itself definitely adds on to your performance and productivity. And the laptop in itself comes with a lot of horsepower to, well, not disappoint you in any manner whatsoever. So yeah, for a starting price tag of 2.5 lakhs, I mean, I think this laptop is anyway available in just 2 variants with either an i7 configuration or like the i9 one that we have here. In either case, I can recommend it very easily to any creator out there who just does not want to switch to a Mac OS and just wants to stay in the Windows ecosystem but also wants to enhance the productivity. And well, that was it. If you found this video helpful, make sure to let us know by giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel for more awesome tech content. Till then, this is Vam from GTR, and I'll see you in the next one.